Hello and welcome to this week's preview show ahead of Huddersfield Town's match against Stoke City. I'm delighted to be joined by former Huddersfield Town captain Tommy Smith and Stephen Chicken from the Huddersfield Examiner. How are you both? You okay?
Yeah, very good, thank you.
Good, thank you, yeah.
Fantastic. That's really good to hear. Tommy, firstly with you, thank you so much for jumping on the call and joining us. Obviously, you've been away from Huddersfield Town for just over a year. Looking back at your time, 200 appearances at the club, obviously, like I said, former club captain, you must have so many fond memories.
So many, yeah, too many to probably go into, really. A huge part of mine, and not only mine, but my family's life. Amazing memories, met amazing people, played some great football, played in some great teams, under some great managers, just an amazing experience from start to finish, really. And I'm very grateful to everyone connected with the club and the fans for the support and love that they gave me throughout.
Yeah, you certainly were a fan's favourite during that period. Is there any like interesting stories that you can shed some light on now that you've left the club?
There's a lot. There's a lot. I won't go into too many, but I think the most notable for me, I think, has to be the trip to Sweden that we obviously all went on when David Wagner first came to the club. That was just something that I think will live with me for the rest of my entire life, for sure. Both good and bad reasons. It was an experience, to say the least. One that I think proved worthy in the end. Obviously, come the end of the season, with the season got promoted, so it was something that the manager will definitely step forward and say it was worthwhile us doing, and I couldn't disagree with that. I think it was a challenge for everyone who went, but a brilliant experience, and one that I'd certainly do again if it meant at the end of the season I'd be getting promotion.
Absolutely. Steve, did you ever hear about that trip? It was obviously before your time at the Examiner, but it was quite widely reported, I think.
Yeah, it sounds a bit I'm a Celebrity, doesn't it? Just like...
Worse. Actually worse. I remember my girlfriend actually saying at the time that's what it sounded like, but it felt a lot worse, believe you me.
I could completely imagine. And Tommy, obviously, when you left Huddersfield Town, like you said, you loved the club, you loved your time here. What was that like when you were leaving to join Stoke City?
It was emotional. It really was. It was a really tough decision from my part. I've been at the club a long time, as you say. I've played a lot of games, and there was just a few different reasons why the Stoke thing escalated. My contract was obviously running out at the time. Wasn't long left on that. We'd just been relegated from the Premier League. I wasn't playing probably as much as I thought I should have been or I wanted to. I didn't really have the intention of leaving. I love the club. I was happy to be there. Obviously, as you said, I was club captain, so it wasn't a case of me banging the door down and listen, I don't want to be here, that sort of stuff. But Stoke come in for me and made it almost impossible for me to turn it down. And it was that simple, really. There's not many clubs. I think I've said this before. There's not many clubs in the Championship that would have turned my head. But Stoke City was certainly one of them. It's an enormous club. Full of talent, great supporters, and it was a move that I ultimately couldn't turn down. I'm at a stage in my career where I wanted to play. I wanted security. I've got a family, so I wanted security, and Stoke City offered me all of that. They offered me the chance to play at a very good level, in front of very passionate fans, and as I say, I just couldn't turn that opportunity down.
And Steve, it's great, isn't it, to hear someone like Tommy obviously come back to the club after departing and say how much he really cherished and loved his time here.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, whenever you've had a lot of success at a club and been captain and been in the team of the year for the Championship and so on, you're going to come away with a lot of fond memories. And I know that Tommy, when you first came to the club, it was a big opportunity for you, wasn't it? When having been at Man City, but then needing those minutes and needing to push on. I know that's something you've talked about before, and yeah, I think it's it's not always, when a player leaves, it's not always in sort of or under a cloud or because of anything that's gone on that's wrong or because anyone's fallen out. Sometimes it's just the right deal for everyone involved and time to move on.
You're absolutely spot on. I think that was the case. As I say, I remember having discussions with both Dean and Phil at the time, and again, it was never really on my mind as I need to leave. I have to leave. I could have stayed at Huddersfield for the rest of my career. I was happy there. I was well thought of. I enjoyed being there. The people were brilliant. It was just like you say. It was just, I think, the right time, the right place, and I feel like I was ready for a new challenge. And Stoke, again, probably the biggest club in my eyes in the Championship, and it was a move that I just couldn't turn down. It's almost the next chapter for my career, and a move now that without doubt I will definitely do again. It's something that doesn't come around too often, and that's no bad word towards Huddersfield, but it was just the right move for me, and on one that I wasn't going to let pass by.
It was when we were out in Austria, wasn't it? Isn't that when it came up?
That was when it came to light. Yeah, there was a lot of newspaper about Celtic and Stoke and this, that, and the other. But again, once the Stoke thing really picked up momentum, I sat down with Phil, I sat down with the manager, and just said, "Listen, I can't ignore this opportunity." And then it was down to obviously them to finalise the deal. But yeah, it was. I think once it got moving and once the ball got rolling with it, it was quite straightforward. The club were very, very good in terms of allowing me to go and speak to Stoke, and then it just went on from there, really.
Do you still keep an eye on Huddersfield Town's results? Speak to some of the lads. I know a lot have left, but do you still keep in touch?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, there's a lot of people, staff, players who I've still got a lot of time for there. Of course, I speak to Hoggy, regularly, probably more than anyone. But again, more the staff members as well that I like to keep in touch with, because they were a big part of my and the club's journey over the last 7-8 years that I was there. So they were a huge part of that. And I met some people at the club who I'll never break contact with, and some people who I'm very fortunate to have met. So I'm always in contact. I always look out for the scores, and I'm always desperate for Huddersfield to do well.
What's it like, Tommy, when you're about to play against your former club, especially a club that you do still hold in really high regard?
Well, it's only happened once. Last season, I didn't play in the game at Stoke's ground, and obviously played in the reverse fixture up at Huddersfield, which we won. Yeah. So it was strange. Don't get me wrong. It was an amazing feeling to go back there. Strange going into the away dressing room, but ultimately, it's my job now to perform to the best of my ability for Stoke City. Make no mistake, if selected on Saturday, that's exactly what I'll be trying to do again. So you've got to put that almost feeling aside, really. And as I've just said, I'll always look out for Huddersfield and want them to do well. But make no mistake, on Saturday, it's obviously business as usual, and I'll be hoping for a Stoke City win.
And obviously, Steve, Stoke 8th in the Championship have got off to a good start. How difficult game, or how much of a difficult game will this be for Carlos Corberán's side?
Yeah, I think the result in January sort of points towards the fact that it's a tricky game, as every game is. But I think both sides have come on a lot since then and changed a lot since then. And for the better, really, when you look at the league position compared with where both sides were last year. Obviously, Town won at the Bet365. It was the first win of the season as well. It was Backer's late goal, wasn't it, that got the win there. So, no, it's going to be a very, very different game to last season. I think two sides that have come on leaps and bounds and really tried to make a good fist of adapting. I think what we've seen from Stoke, obviously, is they've got a lot of goals in them. There's not been too many sort of 1-0s. There's been a couple of 3-2s. So it could be an exciting game.
What's changed at Stoke this season, Tommy? Obviously, last year was a difficult year. Michael O'Neill came in, didn't he, in the November, I believe. What's changed?
I think there's a little bit more consistency in the group in how we do things now. I think last season was a difficult season for not only myself but for the club as a whole. Um, we obviously got off to a poor start in the season, and there was a lot of chopping and changing in terms of team selection, team formation, and it just lacked a little bit of consistency from my point of view. That's just my opinion, and I think since the manager's come in, he's brought a little bit more stability and consistency to how we do things. We've got obviously a way of what we want to do now, a way of playing, and the lads have bought into it. And in fairness, he's stuck to that idea of how he wants to do things, and I think that makes it a lot easier for the players to get on board with. So I think the main thing from my point of view is definitely the stability and the consistency that the new manager's brought, which is obviously reaping the rewards now.
And you've been a regular under him as well, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been very fortunate that I've played. I think I've played pretty much every game this season, which has been great for me. As you'll know, this season obviously we got promoted to the Premier League. I played in the majority of games then, and I feel like that's when I play my best football, when I'm playing regularly. It's always difficult for any player to be in the team and out of the team and then back in. So to get a good run of games under my belt is something that I definitely need, and I feel like that's how the manager and the football club will get the best out of me.
And Steve, obviously Stoke haven't lost at home since September. It was their first home game of the season where they were beaten. How difficult do you think this task is going to be, especially going to Stoke, obviously a difficult place to go?
Yeah, I actually did a blog post a few years ago about a tough place to go. I think and Stoke was always the one that came out top. I think it's had that reputation for a long time, and a lot of the time it's been deserved. I think from what Tommy said there, there's a lot of parallels between Stoke and Town, just in the fact that last year there was probably a touch of pragmatism to everything, going into every game and just sort of try to do everything you can for each individual game to try and get the best result. And then the new season has kind of offered the opportunity to play in a more consistent style. But obviously every away game is difficult in this division, and we say it every week on the preview show, but I think every away game, if you go and get a point, that's a really, really good result in this division.
And everyone seems to talk about Stoke's physicality. Obviously, Stephen Fletcher up front, big centre halves too. Carlos Corberán spoke about that, didn't he, in his press conference? But he said there's so much more, aren't they, than just a physical team now, Stoke City.
Yeah, I think that sometimes certain teams get pigeonholed in a certain way of playing, and I think that kind of image can be quite difficult to shake sometimes. You could watch Italy go and win 5-0, and people would still be talking about what a brilliant defensive unit they were, and I think that it's a similar thing with Stoke, because obviously they had a lot of success sort of probably, we're talking a decade or so ago now, under Tony Pulis, playing that a certain way and playing with, Kenwyne Jones and Peter Crouch up front, and, playing that more physical style. And I think those kinds of images can be difficult to shake sometimes. I'm not saying that it's entirely gone, because obviously, you look at the job that Stoke came and did on New Year's Day, and a lot of that was built on being physically dominant and dominating in the air. But as you allude to, Carlos did say, we can't just go and approach them as though they're just a physical side. They've got other things to them, and you look through that squad list, and there's a lot of talent in that team.
Is that something, Tommy, that you'd kind of echo, that there's different parts to Stoke City's game? It's not just that physical element.
Well, I was going to say, when they bought me, they bought the wrong type of personality. They were going down the physical route, didn't they? maybe I was the change of mindset when they were looking at buying me. I completely agree. I think Stoke have always been seen, over the last God knows how long now, for being a tough physical side. I think that's something that the fans have become familiar with. something the fans obviously want to see is their team be aggressive and be physical on the front foot. And make no mistake, it's something that us as players and the manager still wants us to be. You know, we don't want to be anyone's sort of soft touch, and we don't want to be seen as a weak team, weak-minded, weak physically. We want to be a physical team, but we also want to be a footballing team. So I think it's just about getting the right balance. And make no mistake, I'm sure that the new manager at Huddersfield is saying the same to his players. That listen, I've seen how Huddersfield are trying to do things now. They want to be a ball-playing side, which is great. But I'm sure the manager certainly doesn't say we want to be soft and we want to be, not physical. I'm sure he wants them to be that as well. So, and it's no different to us. We want to do both aspects. And I think if you're going to be successful in this league, you have to be able to do both.
And you brought in, or Stoke City brought in, a number of players with experience as well in the summer. I'm thinking the likes of Stephen Fletcher, John Obi Mikel. How much has that helped, obviously, in terms of the dressing room, but also in this league where you have games coming so thick and fast?
Yeah, it's important. I think I've been in dressing rooms before which have been good, and I've been in dressing rooms before that have been not so good. And in fairness to the dressing room at Stoke, it's right up there with one of the best I've been in terms of the players, in terms of the experience, in terms of the camaraderie, the communication levels between everyone. It's brilliant. And I think you need that. I think if you're ever going to be successful, you need a good, strong dressing room with strong individuals and good characters. And we've got that in abundance, to be fair. The amount of games that are going to be played over December especially is more than probably you would normally get over the course of a season. So it's important that all the players step up to that and they're all ready to play. As I say, we've got a good bunch of lads who are all desperate to play, fighting in the right direction. And when they're not playing, they get on with the work, they train hard, they're willing to do the hard yards and help the teammates out and back them when they're not even playing. So all that sort of stuff adds up to being a good dressing room. That's certainly something that we do have.
And the system, Steve, that Stoke City play, it looks to be like a 4-2-3-1, sometimes shifting into a 4-4-2 as well. That'll be tactically interesting to see how Carlos Corberán sets up against them.
Yeah, two flexible lineups, I think, there, and I think it could have a big bearing on how Town set up defensively, just because we've seen that Carlos likes to have sort of a man-on-man plus one extra. So if it's a one up top from Stoke, then you'd expect a two-man defence, and if it's two up top, you'd expect a three-man defence. So I think that's where having a bit of flexibility on the pitch in terms of the personnel probably helps. We've seen Hoggy dropping in and doing that centre back job a couple of times this season, or Alex Vallejo is an option as well, who offers that flexibility to play at either centre half or in defensive midfield. So yeah, it's I think we've seen a couple of times this season that both teams have been sort of waiting to see what the other side is going to do tactically. Preston was one. Alex Neil was saying he was surprised at how Carlos had lined the team up. So yeah, it's interesting every game now when you get to the team sheet to see exactly how each side is looking to counter the other.
What's that like, Tommy, when you are changing between shapes and systems as a player? Is it hard to grasp when you're going from one to the other? Is it easy? What's it like?
I think that's just the way that football is going now. I think Steve just touched on it there. I think as a manager, that's obviously their job to get across to the players what they want to do. And you have a couple of days before the game, leading up to the game, to say, right, this is how we think they're going to play. This is how we're going to play. If it doesn't work, we're going to go to this, and it's just down to the players to sort of take that on board. I think that is just how the game's going now. A lot of managers have different ideas and ways of counteracting other teams and ways of trying to hurt other teams. And I think that's just, as I say, down to the players to sort of take that on board and realise when the situation arises what needs to be done. In fairness to the lads, that we've actually done that very well this season. We've been flexible in our shape. We've obviously conceded less goals than we did at the start of last season. We've scored more goals, and to be fair, the shape of the team has been good, whether that's been a 3, a 4, or a 5.
Yeah, I think that's why this game in particular is going to be really interesting from that tactical point of view. Obviously, Steve, as well, we come into it off the back of an international break. We spoke a lot about Carlos Corberán's new style of play, how he's been introducing it. Having 2 weeks on the grass, no matches, will be perfect, won't it, for him, just to enhance what he wants to get across here at Huddersfield Town.
Yeah, I think managers at the best of times have less time on the training pitch than they would like, and obviously you can do things with video sessions, but there's no replacement for time on the training pitch, and having those 2 weeks will have been invaluable. The thing is, obviously every team's had that, and Tommy will tell us that Stoke feel exactly the same way, but I think that, yeah, for those teams in particular that are adapting to a new style and that are still getting used to playing a new way, there's certain advantages that come there. And I think one of the big things for Carlos and for Town is just having had the chance to get other personnel up to speed. We're going to see Danny Ward a lot more over this run of fixtures, I'm sure, than the 8 minutes we saw of him in the league before the break. And Alex Vallejo has obviously had been in quarantine, so he's needed to come up to speed. Ramoni Edmonds-Green is back from injury. I think this is, obviously Alex Pritchard and Pippa aren't going to be fit and available, unfortunately, for Saturday. But I think this is about the best shape the squad has been in since the start of the season. So that, even putting anything tactical or any work that's been done on the training ground aside, that is a big boost, particularly now that we've got 5 subs.
Alex Vallejo, do I need to make some notes on him or what?
New signing. He is.
I haven't heard of him yet. Do I need to make some notes? Yeah.
I guess so. You're not going to be marking him though, so I don't think. He's a defensive midfielder. You're all right.
Right, okay.
I'm absolutely not commenting. And Tommy, obviously, like we said, there's loads of fixtures coming up now. I think it's 12 from this game all the way to the 2nd of January, which is absolutely crazy. But what's that like as a player? A game every 2 or 3 days. How hard is it to recover mentally and physically and go again, especially with that Christmas period?
For me, I've always said it. I've said it for years now. I think it's the more mental side of things that takes its toll more than anything. We've actually had quite a busy opening start to the season at Stoke. We've had a lot of games because we've had a decent Carabao Cup run. So we've been playing pretty much every midweek anyway. As I just said to you before, I've played the majority of the games. So physically, I feel quite up to speed, and you almost get into the swing of things of playing every 2 or 3 days. So the legs, in terms of the legs and the physical side of things, I actually feel better for it than perhaps not playing. As I say, your body gets used to that, and I've got used to that over a number of years now of playing consistently, Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday, Wednesday, that sort of thing. But the mental side of things is where I think it really is hard, because you play on a Saturday, you could play at 5:30 on a Saturday, you could play 3 o'clock. You're obviously recovering Sunday, and then you're preparing again for another game the following day. So to switch off from the game on Saturday to then switch on to another game 2 days later is difficult. And it's something that I've never really been able to take probably full advantage of. If I have a good game, it's quite easy to put it to bed. I'm quite happy to say, right, job done, next game. But I think if I have a poor performance or a poor result, I can dwell a little bit, and that's something where I probably need to get better at, in terms of rolling over to the next game sort of thing, and putting it out of my mind. But that's just my character. I've always been like that when I was at Huddersfield, when I was younger as a boy. So as I say, I think the mental side of things can be a lot more. It can definitely take its toll more than the physical side of things, for sure.
And of course, there's 5 subs now, Steve, as well, which will make a massive difference.
Yeah, I mean, Carlos sort of alluded to the fact that this potentially helps out the teams that have bigger senior squads a bit more than those who are a bit sort of tighter on numbers. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And the timing of substitutions and who people pick, it could have such a massive impact on games. We saw that when we had the 5 subs rule earlier this year, briefly. that you can bring on a fleet of players and suddenly it look like an entirely different side. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I to be honest, I do agree with Carlos that I think it's the right decision. I think they had to do it. You look at the way that the injuries are stacking up, in the Premier League where they're playing fewer games, let alone in the Championship or League One or League Two. So although they're having the smaller benches there, they're only having a bench of 7, which sort of minimises that impact. But no, it's I think it was the right move. Probably not ideal that they've done it in mid-season, but there you go.
What's your take on it, Tommy? Obviously, as a player, I suppose it has its advantages and disadvantages. I suppose a team could bring on 5 players at once if they wanted, and it could completely change the shape, completely change the game. But equally, from a point of view of recovery for yourself, if you need to come off in a game, that you have the extra subs to do that. So I suppose it's both sides, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's something that needed to be done. I think that the amount of injuries that potentially could happen is, well, we've seen it, in most Premier League games, but I think it's only a matter of time if in the Championship, if we were to carry on with the same sort of rules, because the fixture congestion, not just for ourselves, but for every club really in this December period, and obviously the FA Cup starts in January. It's tough, and as we just touched on before about physically and mentally, it can be demanding. So I think it's important to have that flexibility where you can change the team if needs be. The obviously 9 subs gives you the ability to put more people on the bench and gives you more options. And I'd be very surprised if the majority of the clubs weren't in favour of doing this, making this rule change. And I'm sure it will definitely decrease the amount of injuries that we see.
And Tommy, just sticking with you, obviously, Steve mentioned Danny Ward, obviously, coming back to fitness again. You'll have played with him, won't he? What's he like?
Yeah, I played with Wardy for it's probably a decent period now, actually. Yeah, he's got a great lad, first and foremost. Lovely lad. So glad to see him obviously back in the Town shirt, which is obviously great for him, and hopefully he can keep fit now. I know he's had a couple of injury problems since he joined, so hopefully he can keep fit. But yeah, brilliant lad. Was a good player when I was at Huddersfield. He obviously went on to Cardiff and a few other clubs in between. But yeah, delighted to see him back at Huddersfield, and I hope he does very well for the club.
You looking forward to playing against him?
If he plays, yeah. Well, we'll see on Saturday, won't we? But yeah, no, I played against him a few times. To be fair, when I was at Huddersfield, I think he might have played against him against Rotherham a couple of times at Cardiff. So yeah, but looking forward to the game Saturday in general. Not just obviously for Wardy, but just to see some familiar faces, and just obviously a massive shame that there couldn't be a full house there as well, which would have been nice, but we obviously know the reasoning behind that. So, but it would just be nice to see some familiar faces and be playing football again after the 2-week break.
Yeah, absolutely. Tommy, Steve, thank you very much for joining us. Huddersfield Town fans, you can purchase a iFollow match pass, iFollow HDFC pass, to watch the game against Stoke City for just £10. That'll get you exclusive Huddersfield Town analysis, live commentary from the game as well, and obviously you'll be able to watch Carlos Corberan's side. Tommy, Steve, thanks again.